Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond Jaws podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be talking to Rachel Graham, who's here to tell us about a study where they recorded the longest transatlantic tiger shark migration ever. And it's 18,000 kilometers there and back from Cape Verde to Brazil and then back. It's going to be an exciting episode because this is something that is groundbreaking. So it's groundbreaking news update. We're going to talk to Rachel. Let's start the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Beyond Jaws podcast. I'm your co-host, Andrew Lowen, here with my co-host, Dr. David Ebert. Dave, the largest transatlantic migration that we've seen a tiger shark do. This is the second longest migration that we've seen a tiger shark do. When you get a shark like this to do what it does, or you discover a shark can do this, like, from a scientific perspective, what goes through your mind? Like does your heart start palpitating and stuff? Like, what goes on?
What it tells you is these large sharks, like the white shark and the tiger shark, they use immense portions of the ocean for their migratory routes. And so you really have this thing crossing across the Atlantic and back. You know, it's 18,000 kilometers. It's a phenomenal movement pattern. And, on the one hand, it's not surprising because it's a big shark doing that. But at the same time, you really get an appreciation for, like, wow, these things can really cover a lot of ground. And I think, like with the white shark a few years ago, when we realized, like in the Pacific, that they migrate from, say, California out to Hawaii seasonally, you really get an appreciation for just how much territory these things can cover. And so in terms of, like, from a conservation or from a management stuff, you're basically you're in an area of, like, international jurisdictions beyond boundaries, or I'm not using the right term, but basically it's international waters.
The high seas.
The high seas, yeah, exactly. And stuff. And but you wonder, but also, like, where are these things going? Because they're certainly not catching them that frequently out there. You might get the odd one here and there, but so they probably are moving at depth, so they're beyond any typical type of fishing areas as they transit across the Atlantic or in the Pacific, which had an even longer migratory route. But you also can get an idea, like, at this time of year, these tiger sharks are probably going to show up in this location or that location, which is really kind of cool to see. So, I'm excited about it. I'm excited to hear about Rachel's story about this. And it's been a while since she's been on the show, so it'll be good to catch up with her in general.
Absolutely. And just a spoiler alert, she did have another story that we're going to be posting in a few episodes' time. So, if you want to, if people here want to listen to that and they don't want to miss it, just hit that follow button or subscribe button, depending on where you're listening to this episode. How about we start the interview with Rachel Graham and get into it and find out all the juicy details of how this study began and what they found and what that's going to tell us about with our conservation in the future. So here is the interview with Rachel Graham. Enjoy, and we'll talk to you after. Hey, Rachel, welcome back to the Beyond Jaws podcast. Are you ready to talk about tiger sharks?
Oh, I am so ready, Andrew and Dave. It's lovely to be here again. Thank you for having me on your show.
I love it. We can't wait.
Well, we have another episode of Beyond Jaws podcast with a powerhouse guest today who's on our show on our 17th episode back in March of 2022. She's a real true entrepreneur and a real pioneer. We have the fabulous Dr. Rachel Graham on the show today. In fact, she has so much to share with us today, we're going to make this into 2 episodes, which will be airing soon. Rachel, just for background, she's the founder and director of the Mar Alliance organization, which is a science-based conservation organization with field stations in Belize, Panama, Honduras, Mexico, Micronesia, Cabo Verde, and probably a few other places that I'm forgetting right now. Rachel has her BSc in zoology from Oxford, an MSc from Edinburgh, and a PhD from the University of York in the UK. She's worked at a number of places, including the UN, the University of York, Smithsonian, Wildlife Conservation Society, and she's literally worked all over the world. And she founded the Mar Alliance in 2014, and she really made a name for herself studying whale sharks. And she did the first PhD thesis on whale sharks from her research in Belize. And as I say, she's a real entrepreneur. She had a paper come out on tiger shark movements in the Atlantic, so we thought it was time to have her back on. Long overdue. And Rachel, welcome back.
Thank you. It's a joy to be back, and it's great to be able to talk about something else that has stripes, not just whale sharks.
Yeah, that's great. Cool. So why don't you just tell us about your study and about these amazing findings you have?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, one of the reasons why this study came into prominence is that a couple of different reasons. But the main one is that we were doing a large baseline survey in Cape Verde. This is with local fishers, our national coordinators, Eddie Seymour, and our communications officer, Cynthia Lima. And what we were finding in this baseline survey is a whole really fantastic diversity of sharks around the archipelago of Cape Verde, especially the eastern islands, Sal, Boa Vista, and Mayo, using primarily baited remote underwater videos. But what was popping up occasionally were also tiger sharks. And, we decided we were going to follow up on some of the BRUV sightings with some scientific long lines. So our standardized long line protocol, short soak, 90, no more than 90 minutes, standardized bait, circle hooks, etc. And we decided to give it a try up in the island of Sal, where tiger sharks had been caught by fishermen, sometimes dragged to the tourist docks, shown off. I've got some rather egregious pictures of tourists like hauling back the heads of tiger sharks and all the rest. And we thought, there's not a lot known about tiger sharks in West Africa, especially not in Cape Verde. And so that kind of kickstarted our study there. And what we found dumbfounded us, because as soon as we were dropping these long lines, it wasn't 4 minutes before the first tiger shark would hit, then number two, then number three. I mean, it just kind of went on.
Wow.
And so what we did is we really wanted to understand, well, why are they there? What's their spatial ecology and so much more. And so we ended up satellite tagging a whole host of them, actually 12 to be precise, and not just in Sal, but in some other areas of Cape Verde. And the big finding is that they're not just sticking to Cape Verde, which is, not that much of a surprise. But the cherry on the surprise cake was a large 3 meter plus female tiger whom we'd actually tagged in Boa Vista, deciding she was going to hot foot it to Brazil. I guess she thought the caipirinhas were better there than in Cape Verde. And she ended up doing, yes, exactly. She ended up doing this incredible voyage, going very close to where we had Sharks International, Jean Pessoa, and Recife, and then Fernando de Noronha, and kind of ambled around there for a little while before actually returning to Cape Verdean waters. And that entire journey spanned almost 18,000 kilometers and about 404 days, which when I was doing a quick calculation, that's like moving 44 kilometers a day. So you're booking it. You have to have somehow a sense of purpose. And in fact, you can see that the journey is quite directed. So, of course, that raised a ton of questions about, well, is she going there to mate? Is she going there to pup? And of course, confirming that transatlantic crossing that had never been fully confirmed previously. It had been hinted at, but never, and it was a double transatlantic. So thankfully, that satellite tag worked long enough for us to see that these animals really need entire ocean basins in order to fulfill their life cycle requirements.
Now, did you know that there was such a population of tiger sharks there initially? Because it's not some, I mean, just people know Cape Verdes are just off sort of Northwest Africa, look on a map. But they're so little known out there. I had no idea there was such a these tiger sharks were there in any number.
So this was really new to us. So we started work kind of 2015, 2016. And as I mentioned, we did a baited remote underwater survey, which is actually published. It's up on our website, maralines.org. If you look under resources, we try to make our papers available. So because, people need to access data. And so it makes it easy for everybody to be able to see what's been done especially in tropical countries where you can't afford these subscriptions. So that's another thing to discuss on another podcast in another day. Is access to information, democratization of science. But with respect to to tiger sharks in Cape Verde, based on those initial pieces of work, we started hearing also, we did fishermen surveys all the way back in 2016. And some of the information that was rolling in was, there are these catches, and that's catches of tiger sharks. And that's really what put a bee in Zeddy's bonnet and my bonnet. And we
Mhm.
said, let's go and figure it out. And so the following summer, which is the period of time in Cape Verde when you have some of the calmest waters, because it can be very
Mm-hmm.
rough. We're talking about the Eastern Atlantic directly west from Senegal. And, when you're out there, you're out there. You better hope that your boat has two engines,
Mhm.
because you're really out in the middle of the Atlantic,
Mhm.
practically, and what it feels that way. So, yes. And that's why we focused that survey on tigers. The other reason, too, was that we were seeing an increase in fishing effort on sharks,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one of the reasons why we were concerned that there was ramping up of shark fishing. And at the same time, there was a need for more information based on the National Action Plan for Sharks that had
Mhm.
been, that was kind of in the works by Mika Diop in Senegal, who'd been hired by the Cape Verdean government to help them with that
Now, I have to
report.
ask you because Cape Verde, I've actually been there, but it's in the middle of nowhere. Literally, it's like some
Yeah.
rocks in the middle of the ocean. How
Yes.
did you happen to like stumble onto thinking this would be an interesting place to study the sharks out there?
So it's funny you should say, ha. Um, as I started my career in '98 with whale sharks, I was always looking to see where are whale sharks going. And what I was seeing is whale sharks are moving from one feeding site to the next and starting to see these patterns of connectivity, migration and connectivity, movement
Right.
connectivity in the Western Atlantic. And that's how, I pulled together a whole bunch of different researchers who might be interested in working on whale sharks from the Flower Garden Banks, National Marine Sanctuary to Holbox, Cancun, Honduras, Cuba, and more. And it's actually whale sharks that initially got me interested in Cape Verde because I was looking at the whole West Africa, and from, I don't know, a Western Sahara all the way down to Angola. What's the status of whale sharks and even manta rays there? And we didn't know. So I started looking into what patterns of movement might be elucidated there.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that time, I went originally to try and study some of the whale sharks and the manta rays. And then, of course, through the Fisher surveys and the Bruv surveys, we stumbled across all these other species, tiger sharks, Spirna lewini, the scalloped hammerhead, the regionally endemic Paragaleus
Oh,
shark as
nice.
well.
Oh
So,
yeah.
yeah, so really, really whale sharks kind of lead you to all kinds of other open doors. And for that,
Mhm.
I'm very grateful. And we've got actually work coming out on the whale sharks because we did a lot of
Oh,
work on the whale sharks while we were
okay.
there too. Go figure. We've done the manta rays,
That's right.
fisheries, tiger sharks, and whale sharks as well. So
It,
yes, whale sharks led us to the tiger sharks.
so so
Interesting.
so so there is there is a bit of a fishery there, and you've been documenting, I presume, the species that have been catching it. We got whale sharks, got tiger sharks, Paragaleus out there, which are weasel sharks.
Yes.
Um, did you just off the top? This is kind of more of a my question is how many species of sharks and rays do you have out there? Have you counted?
I should have that number off the top of my head, and I can't answer you off the top of my head.
Okay. I should have. I should have just prep study for the show. I've got to ask those questions. I just like 'cause
Dave's always like, "Is there any more sharks I could look for?"
Can I discover them?
yeah.
So you definitely have central forest. You've got fisheries for those. I'd seen pictures of that ages ago. So we
Mhm.
definitely, based on how the archipelago is situated, and you've got very deep waters around
Mm.
Cape Verde, you do
Mhm.
have deep water fisheries, and you have deep water
Steve.
elasmobranchs as
Okay.
well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. It's kind of like I said. It's one of those places like you. We just wouldn't know about unless you've been there or are familiar with that area, or you're looking for whale sharks, I guess, as well, to kind of stumble
I
across
was,
it.
but the fishers were catching everything from spinners and blacktips and a lot of scalloped hammerheads.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to form a lot of the shark
Okay.
oriented fisheries in nearshore
Yeah.
coastal waters. Because there's another thing too. There's two classes of fishers. There's a small scale fisher who usually has a tiny little engine, like a 15 horsepower, 40 horsepower or so, and they're only really allowed to actually fish within the waters of the island where they're situated.
Oh, okay.
Whereas some of the kind of mid-sized, more industrial commercial fishers actually hop between islands. They're not really supposed to overlap with the small scale fishers in those
Gotcha.
nearshore
Mm.
waters, but unfortunately they do. And that's a conflict that we
Yeah.
saw
Now those
increasing over time.
those fishers are more local, but they're local fishers. Do they have much impact do you have like foreign fleets coming in to fish in the waters there?
So there are a host of foreign fleets in much further away. So that's one of
Mm.
the things that we were concerned about, especially when we were looking at tracing the tiger's paths,
Yeah, cross.
moving in and across several jurisdictionary boundaries, several
Mm-hmm.
country EZs. Um, and there's big longline purse seine net fisheries in that East African area. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of Portuguese, a lot of Spanish, French,
Hmm.
etc.
Yeah, the usual suspects generally from that part of the world is fishing.
Yeah.
Um, and but going back over to your Caribbean side, have you ever tagged many tiger sharks over there off some of the Central
So
American coast?
actually, we do have a growing project on tigers
Hmm.
in the Caribbean. Yes,
Okay, because I wonder if they. I guess if I get it's too early. You don't have any idea
and
if they
big
mix
ones.
in big ones. Do they mix it all with the population that you're the Cape Verde
Cape Verde.
population at all?
So what we're seeing so far is they're either. So what's interesting about the satellite tagging is that we noticed a trend that was also reflected in some other papers, other work that people have done, which is, often once they're tagged, they tend to go deep, they stay deep for a while, and you see that on several of the tracks. You don't see them up near the surface transmitting. These are spot tags, right?
Mm.
Not pop-up archival tags that we were using. So what we're seeing is that the animals that we've been tagging really go deep and stay deep
Hmm.
for quite some time. And then they'll be crossing big stretches of water, but they're not going across clearly across the Caribbean or to
Mm.
the other side of the Atlantic yet, but you
Right.
never
But
know.
you have that. Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing. I like. Are you going to look at some kind of isotope study, or do you take like
So we
samples, like
have a
genetic
lot of,
study?
yes, we have a lot of things planned actually.
Yeah.
And we also want to look at because we want to look at their gestational cycle as well,
Yeah.
Mhm.
because it's suspected that they might be biennial in their reproduction, but we have so much to learn. And what we've seen is that we're finding with bruv work and even longline work, we'll catch really small animals in a
Mm.
whole host of different places along
Oh.
coastlines.
Oh.
So that whole mention of extended pupping areas for tigers appears to be true, at least in the parts of the Caribbean where we've been working.
Mhm.
Um, so is there a specific site where you're seeing a lot of these neonates, young of the years? We haven't found that yet.
Okay.
We do know that there are a couple of sites where we can find larger females.
Okay.
Mm. Mhm.
Now, how long
And
did
that's
you
what
have?
we're going to be focusing on. We're going to be focusing on for stable isotope analysis, for ultrasound, so we
Oh,
better
cool.
understand. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Also, population analysis. Although what's been shown is that apparently there's quite a bit of structuring in the
Okay.
population in the Atlantic. However, you then get these wonderful outliers like Kalema, the female tiger shark, who then goes and does a double back and forth, and
Mm.
a lot about these large
And how long
migrations.
does it take for them? Like, did you get the days of like how long it took them to get do that 18,000, was it 18,000
It was
kilometer journey?
404 days. So
404 days. Okay.
404 days to do almost 18,000 kilometers.
Wow.
And so that's swimming at a rapid clip of about
Yeah.
44 kilometers a day.
Man,
Now this was the
that's
second
crazy.
longest track you said for a tiger shark. It was the Pacific. They had a longer one, or
Yes, but this is the first big
transatlantic.
transatlantic track.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just in the one in the Pacific. Do you remember where that one went? Do you remember the distance? Like the distance, or the
I
distance, or where it went off the top? I was trying to remember where.
to be honest, off the top, my ability to hold facts in my head is diminishing by the decade.
Yeah, we won't go there for this conversation, Rachel.
Andrew, that's where you delete this little piece right here, so we don't sound like we're
I would be.
entirely. Yeah, no,
I would have been able to cite the paper, time where they went, all this.
I know, I know. Me too. Can't do it
I
anymore.
I remember it. I know it's there, but I thought it was in
Hmm.
the Pacific, but I can't remember the details on it. So maybe somebody out there will remember it and post it on our comments when the episode comes out. I can
Well,
find
I mean,
out.
it's yeah, I mean
Well, yeah.
that's easy to look up. But one of the
Yeah.
things that I really like is that so Kim Holland did a kind of future of tiger shark research, and there are
Mhm.
several things that he touched on, which was, is there a pupping aggregation site? Are there some mating sites? What is the reproductive cycle? There's
Mhm.
so many more things that we can discover with tiger sharks, and the differences that lie between, for example, the Atlantic basin and the Pacific, and
Mhm.
so much more. So it's kind of exciting discovery time.
It's interesting because I think we're learning more with these different tags, like with the tiger sharks, with your study, where these things are moving across the Atlantic, and
Hmm.
and I think this gets into this whole thing about when you're trying to like look at protecting shark species, especially some of these large migratory species, that these sharks are moving around a lot, the larger ones. We had that. There's a study where they had a white shark move from Cape Town all the way out to Indonesia, and they've had a couple one go. They had another one
Wasn't
that.
that Nicole?
No, that one went to Nigalo Reef. No, this was
Australia. That's right. That's right.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
yeah. No, this one went to that's a story I think we're gonna do a separate episode on, because it was real. I was actually got involved in that one, finding the thing. That tag showed up in Indonesia, and a fisherman had it in the village for a couple years.
Oh, right. Yeah, this is recently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they just published a paper on it. Allison Koch and a whole group of them there and stuff. That was a fascinating story. But the point then that went all, and then you have the one Nicole you mentioned that went from Cape Town to Nigalo Reef up in northwest Australia, and now we got these tiger sharks and of course whale sharks that are moving all the way across these
And
vast
so you're
ocean
seeing,
basins. Yeah,
yeah, and you're seeing these big migrations being performed a lot of the time by these large adult female
Yeah.
sharks.
yeah,
Yeah.
And yeah, great way to spread the genes. And
yeah,
yeah,
Indeed.
and of course there's basking sharks now. We know they move across the Atlantic as well as north and south. They'll
as
go from
north to south, and all the way
yeah,
down to places like Dominican Republic, etc. So it's
yeah.
really remarkable
But
the migrations that they're able to do, or even close to the Western Sahara, if I recall.
yeah,
Hmm.
when it goes to speak to their fitness at the time to be able to do that type of trek, right? To move at that speed for that distance, like they must be feeding well. In like this one must have fed well in Cape Verde to be able to get across the Atlantic for that speed on, like, was it 44 kilometers per day? Like that's pretty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you're absolutely right. And I think this is where tigers really are they're the champions. I think there was a quote saying that they're the climate change champions because they're so adaptable. They,
Right.
they have a very broad thermal range. And not only that, they can eat a whole host of different types of food.
Hmm.
So they'll be very opportunistic in the food types. I had a really great moment. Actually, I'm writing up the note at the moment, where my two of my favorite species came together with tiger sharks eating a whale shark off of the coast of Belize. I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
a triple win.
It's like
So
practically your backyard. There you
I
go.
know, right? Exactly. So yeah, considering that they have this wide thermal range, that they do go to depth, and they're able to utilize that water column as for feeding, for orientation, for all of these, and behavioral thermoregulation, then yeah, they're pretty
Yeah.
awesome creatures, I have to say. And
Oh
the
yeah.
other thing that also makes them more likely to survive longer term, especially with fisheries pressures, is the fact that they're so hardy on the long line. I was looking at one of the NOAA studies looking at mortality on long lines, and tigers, 4 hours later, and they're still
Wow.
alive.
They're
Unreal.
like they're you kind of I always like look at them as like a garbage can with fins. It's like they're literally like eat pretty much anything. They kind of now they seem to go everywhere they want, and
Yeah.
they're
Yep.
just like that. I don't know what the analogy would be for it, but other even things like white sharks. Like white sharks they kind of croak out pretty easily if you get them on a long
You got a
line.
long
They
line.
Well,
don't last.
a lot of lamnids do.
Yeah,
Lamnids don't do well with cortisol,
no,
stress,
no.
etc. But tiger sharks are like, yeah,
We could
pass me the
handle this.
margarita or the caipirinha in this case.
Yeah, Kuiper, yeah, exactly. So they're a tough, hardy
They're
shark. Yeah,
chill. They're very
yeah,
chill. And one thing that I'm really excited and something that we're going to integrate into our work moving forward is they found a new. Again, it's like I wish I could remember everybody who writes these amazing and does this amazing work around the world. Um, but there's a new way to identify photo ID tiger sharks, and it's not
oh,
on the stripes and dots, which do fade as they get
mm-hmm.
larger. And so it's
Yep,
probably more difficult to be able to
Yeah.
identify
right.
individuals. And that's kind of what we were focusing on. And I was
Hmm.
thinking, what are we going to do? Because I do know that they fade. Well, what's really cool is that line between the gray and the white on the
Hmm.
belly is very
Mm-hmm.
kind of serrated and edgy. That apparently does not change. And
Oh,
so that
Oh.
is the basis for doing ID and
And it's
actually,
unique.
it's unique.
yes. Hmm.
It's
Wow.
Yeah.
unique. Wow.
And in
Okay.
fact, Jason Holmberg, who was the architect behind all the photo IDs for whale sharks and
Mm-hmm.
has now
Yeah.
joined the Conservation X Labs with his Wild Me outfit, just pinged me and said, "Hey, we've got a new photo ID thing for tiger sharks we want to try
Amazing.
out. Want to be part of
Amazing.
it?" And I'm like,
Yeah,
"Yes,
Yes,
heck
absolutely."
yeah.
absolutely.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
that'd
So
be
you see, again, whale sharks lead to
Yeah, they
tiger sharks.
lead
I think
you,
yeah.
all roads lead to tiger sharks from disparate sources.
especially through
Yeah.
whale sharks. It's perfect.
Yeah.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Well,
Well, it's those stripes and spots again.
That's
What
it.
can you say?
yeah.
That's it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I don't know.
It's all these little
Well, I'm not gonna
symbols.
say anything because I'm still like in search of my first whale shark in the field, so I'm just
Yeah,
gonna.
Dave has had some
Oh,
bad luck for whale
Dave, give it
sharks.
up. Come and join me in Mexico. Come on.
Yeah, I did. I've been to Mexico and I've never seen them there, but I'll have to hit you up here sometime and go see them because every time I show up there, they're not there. It's
Oh,
just my I don't know.
They
It's
have
like,
they have an allergy to Dave. As soon as he shows
there
up
we
in
go.
Asia, they're like,
everybody
we're
says,
out.
"Oh yeah, come here, no problem. You'll see plenty of
Yeah.
them." And I show up there now. They're not. Oh, I don't know what's going on this year. They seem to be late, and then as soon as I leave, like 2 days later, they're
You
all
know what they're
there.
doing? They're like, here, let us show you how deep we can dive because we know you like
Yes.
deep diving sharks.
Yes.
Yeah,
Let us show you how deep we can dive. So
yeah.
And then
that's
when
why
they
you're
come up to
missing
look
them.
for you, like, where did he go?
What happened to them?
What
They're
happened?
down with the six-gill sharks, which are
Yeah.
more my.
Yeah,
my-
exactly.
There we
Hang on.
go. Those are,
Yeah.
I mean, for being the galumphing Labradors of the sea, whale sharks are just such incredible, um, extreme, when everybody was using that word extreme
Yeah.
animals, extreme
Right.
caffeinated drink, extreme, extreme,
Yeah.
extreme. So whale sharks are definitely the extremes because there was a moment where there's a bunch of us who were kind of like out competing each other to how deep can our whale shark dive according to
Mhm.
the technology we have available. And to be pretty much at 2,000 plus meters, 6,660 feet.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's
Crazy.
insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's pretty cool.
It'd
So
be,
big respect to the galumphing Labrador sharks.
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, it'd be kind of interesting to see as you get more data between the whale sharks, the tiger sharks, white sharks, basking sharks. Like, see if these things have different corridors that they travel when they go travel across the Atlantic, whether it's east to west or north to south. It'd be interesting if they're using, because I know some of the stuff they've shown in the Pacific that where the white sharks will go out to Hawaii, the
Right.
salmon sharks will migrate south, but they don't go quite as far south as where the white sharks congregate.
Mm.
And
Maybe it's a
and
pecking. Could it be a pecking order or a temperature issue?
Hard to say. I don't know. Well, because they could go at depth when they're in the open ocean like that. They can move to a depth they could
They were
accommodate.
getting colder. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's just kind of interesting. Of course, nobody knows why the white sharks are going to Hawaii, other than it's like for whatever.
Yeah.
What do they have in Hawaii? It's not margaritas. What do they drink out there?
Mai Tais.
Mai Tais. There you go. Mai
Mai Tais.
Tais. There you go. Yeah, Mai
Well,
Tais.
we're going to judge these nodes of connectivity based on the alcoholic drink.
On the alcoholic drink. This will
That's
be a
the title of the paper.
This will be a
Mai Tais.
This will be a test.
Yeah,
Like what drink equates to what shark?
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
There we go. From
Great.
tequila to rum and coke to
Yeah.
what do we have in Cuba? What's in Cuba again?
Well, it's got to be like
With mint.
Cuba's-
I don't know.
God.
I was gonna say
Show
what's a good margarita shark?
Oh. Huh.
I gotta
don't
think.
know.
I'm not
Bull
sure.
shark.
a bull.
Bull shark?
Yeah.
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 Okay, I'll take that
'Cause
one.
they're along.
Sure.
Yeah, they're along that coastline.
Yeah, I'd rather be having a margarita than diving with bull sharks. So what the heck? Yeah, sure, that works.
Maybe you
come
need a
on,
margarita
Dave.
before you
Come
dive with
on.
bull sharks.
No, it's not my. It's just my. I don't need
So
to be
we're working,
chummed.
yeah, and we're working with bull sharks as well throughout the Mesoamerican Reef, and looking
Nice.
at this shark superhighway corridor, but especially between Belize and Mexico's Quintana Roo,
Nice.
and trying to quantify the use and
Yeah.
the demography of the species using it, also clear pupping grounds and
Yeah.
reproductive grounds, and so much more. But that will be for another day
We'll
because
do that
we're
another
still in
episode.
the
We'll do that
later
another
on.
day.
Another-
Well, you're gonna have a regular episode on this. It's
we'll
gonna be the
have to
Mar
have
Alliance
We'll
show.
be on the
here.
have your own
Love
little
it.
your own little segment here.
Yeah.
I was just going to
Rachel,
say with the tigers in Cape Verde, I think one of the things that we're really excited about is that we've really just scratched the surface with the species
Yeah.
in Cape Verde, and we're really excited to see this work expand, but onto the West African coast as well. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot more. There are several NGOs that have cropped up recently working on sharks and shark fisheries. So you've seen this expansion of work, and also in Cape Verde. When we started, we were the only ones working on sharks.
Interesting.
All those years ago, in a focused, dedicated way. And I think that more people, better, and
Oh,
if
absolutely.
we can actually reverse some of the declines, that would be absolutely fantastic. One thing that I didn't mention is, you're asking why are they in Cape Verde potentially? Well, one thing that they have, especially in Boa Vista and Sal, they are huge rookeries, and the biggest in the world for loggerhead turtles. And boy, tiger sharks love them.
They love those
Loggerhead turtles. Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're there, especially during the mating season for the turtles, and that happens to be when you're seeing the tigers hanging around as well. Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh,
What policies would you like to see enacted, as this research comes out, especially in West Africa, especially in like Cape Verde?
So I think what would be great is it's hard. It's hard because the policies that we might have in some parts of the world where people are not dependent on shark meat to survive
Yep.
is one thing.
Right.
In West Africa, you have in coastal communities the need for protein and poverty levels that would you give up a tiger shark if you know you're going to be feeding 30, 40 people?
Yep.
So the policies that I would like to see is because they have such great resistance and resilience, especially when they're caught, is potentially releasing large females and releasing pups. They grow pretty quickly, so
is it to
thinking
that
about
level?
that.
Do you think? Like, is it to that level where the local people are catching those sharks for their own consumption? Is it to the level where it's dangerous? Like they're catching
There's both.
Yeah.
There's both. Yeah, there's captures for local consumption, subsistence, and then there's a larger industrial
So maybe
fishing
having
vessels that are catching.
a difference in the policies. So if it's subsistence, then it's fine. If it's better, but then if it's more commercial, then maybe have a little bit more.
Well, you're seeing a lot of seeing some of the loopholes potentially being able to be closed up with the BBNJ, which is biodiversity
Yeah.
beyond national jurisdictions.
Yeah. The high
So
seas
this, you know,
treaty. Yeah.
this paper on tigers came out at just the right time because BBNJ in seeking even more signatories to make it even
Mm-hmm.
more robust as
Mm-hmm.
a treaty, are also looking for data and case studies that
Yeah.
demonstrate the use of these kind of these areas that belong to everybody and nobody all at the same
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
in
Agreed.
order to be able to try and formulate either marine protected areas where there are going to be rules and regulations against fishing these highly migratory species or more. So we're really grateful to Tiger Shark Kalema for highlighting the use of
Absolutely.
entire oceanic basins and supporting the BBNJ
Yeah.
treaty.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so I
Well,
think
Maybe.
there's a lot of things on the horizon that'll be coming
Yeah.
out. I think there's a long way to go,
Yeah.
unfortunately, because who's going to patrol that? Who's going
Oh,
to,
it's so difficult.
you
So
know,
many
what kind of
questions to ask.
so many questions
yeah.
and more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Good.
But
but
maybe she
Tigers
could become a bit of an icon for the BBNJ, right?
Yeah.
absolutely, she
Yeah.
could be
Good.
one of their flagship
That'd be
species
awesome.
and animals. Yep.
There you
That'd
go.
be
There you
awesome.
go.
That'd be great.
Well, Rachel, thanks so much for coming on and sharing the story about the tiger sharks. And we're going to be back with another episode here talking about your next big discovery here, and we'll share that when you come back on here in the next episode. So, okay.
Absolutely. Thank you
Thanks
so
very
much,
Thank you.
Rachel. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much, and thank you for having me. That was
Of
brilliant.
course. You bet. Thank you, Rachel, for joining us on today's episode of the Beyond Jaws podcast. Dave, what an exciting discovery. Like, this doesn't happen every day where you get this type of discovery. The longest transatlantic, 18,000 kilometers to Brazil and back from Cape Verde. Phenomenal type of story. And from an organization like Mar Alliance to be able to publish this with their collaborators, this is huge. This is such a big thing for them.
Oh yeah, no, this is a huge. I think it's a huge story, and obviously it did get a lot of media attention when it first came out here a few weeks ago. And yeah, I mean, as I kind of said in the intro, you suddenly realize these large predators have huge territories that they cover, and you know where they're going to be at certain times of the year, and why they're going there, why they're this migratory route. That's fascinating. That's another whole series of questions you can ask. Why do they know to go from here to there on that route? But it's fascinating that they cover such an immense area, and they turn up in these different locations. Then you can start seeing, well, what are they feeding on? You know, are some of these areas, are they for mating purposes, for
Right.
birthing? Are they nursery areas? You can you get kind of peel the curtain back a little bit on things like tiger sharks, because otherwise you just know certain times of the year they'll show up in this one location. But now it's kind of another little piece of the puzzle as to where these things go.
Yeah.
And you know, as we know too, with a lot of these species, they tend to segregate by size and by sex. So the immature ones may go one place. These are like an adult female, like this, may go a different location. You know, males may turn out somewhere, but you know, at some point they got to get together and make
their
little babies,
thing.
little baby tiger sharks.
Yeah, show up. Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it goes to show that we still have so much to discover. I mean, even from the beginning of the study, which wasn't a tiger shark migration study, it was, let's find out as much as we can about the sharks in Cape Verde, in that archipelago. And then they found so much diversity in there. It just goes to show there's so much more we need to find out about sharks and their diversity, and then we could discover more about their conservation. We could, you know, like if you think about a tiger shark that travels there to Brazil and back from Cape Verde, you look at where do they stop on the way? Are they stopping on the way? You know, what are they doing on the way there? Can we put, you know, now with the High Seas Treaty, can we put marine protected areas in certain spots where they might aggregate with other animals? You know, we're looking at distinctive areas where it might attract sharks on their way. It could be an upwelling that we didn't know about. It could be anything. Maybe even they're in a gyre somewhere and they're trying to find some food on the way to make sure that they can eat and have the energy to do that migration, right? There's so many
Yeah.
questions after that.
Oh yeah, and this again, this is just one data point. You might tag
Right.
another one, and it might go to it might go to Canada for all we know. Who knows?
For sure.
That's where they really screw you up, these sharks, because you tag one that goes to Brazil, the other one goes to Canada.
Yeah.
Heck, you might have one might go to Angola, for crying out loud.
For sure.
So who knows? But
Yeah.
but it is one data point. It gives you a bit of an idea what's going on. And I think it's like something I mentioned earlier is like if they don't seem to catch them when they're traveling across these ocean basins. They're probably traveling at a depth where they're not being caught, but it's where they turn up.
Right.
That's where you probably, because tiger sharks are known to be coastal as well as oceanic, but
Yeah.
it's when they get into the coastal areas that their vulnerability in terms of fishing comes into play.
No, absolutely. I mean, we've seen, you talk about, where sharks will go. I mean, we've seen with O-Search and the sharks that they tag, some great whites will, do their regular pattern in the Atlantic going from, what is it, up in what's the, loss of words. That's the island up in Martha's Vineyard.
Or Martha's Vineyard?
It's Martha's Vineyard. Is that what
Yeah.
it is?
Yeah.
Is it Cape something? Is it not Cape something? It doesn't matter. Martha's
matter.
Vineyard, and then go down to Jacksonville like in the winters.
Right.
And then every once in a while you'll see one go out to the Mid-Atlantic like ridge, and
Yeah.
so you're just like, okay, like where did that one go and why did it go there? Did it get lost? Like is
Yeah.
it there for a reason? So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we need to know, and maybe that just kind of introduces another study where we start looking at tiger sharks in the Cape Verde area or even the Brazil area and start tagging them more, just to
Right.
find out where they're going and what that means for conservation purposes. We know sharks are the top of the food chain in many of these ecosystems, and they play a very important role. So I would hate to see them get caught, on the way over
Yeah.
the transatlantic and the high seas.
Yeah. Again, I just from my sort of guessing, as I mentioned, it seems like they're not catching them that much when they're transiting. I know with white sharks going to Hawaii, they tend to move at depth.
Yeah.
So they're not really seeing them they don't
Yeah.
get caught that much, because you hear about oceanic white tips and silky sharks, which are the main ones that seem to get caught a lot.
Right.
But if you know, like, okay, these tiger sharks are going to show up in approximately this location in Brazil at this time of year, that's where you can really look to do something. 'Cause I just think it's going to be really tough to try to put together some policy for when they're transiting across there.
Yeah.
But if you know they're going to be in this location at this time of the year, then you can do something, because then you're more dealing with you're within national boundaries with economic exclusive zones. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can do something there.
Yeah.
I think. But it's a fascinating study. I'm really glad we had Rachel on to talk about this. And as you mentioned, we're going to, in a couple episodes up here, we're going to have her back on for another exciting talk about
Very exciting.
sawfish, which
Yeah.
I'm really, that was a bonus for us talking to her in this one. We found out, like, oh, there's this other study we need to have her on for. So anyway, stay tuned.
I have to say, when we first brought Rachel on, our first attempt to do the recording, we ended up talking so much just about everything that we spent about probably 2 hours talking and never recording an episode. And she's like, hey, can we do this another time? Because I've run out of time. We're like, yeah, no, so have we. And then we brought it back, and then she's like, we could talk about this. Then we have this other study. Then we have this other, like, let's just bring it on for studies. And this is just like, I want people, if you've been listening for this long, I want people to know, if you're in shark research or shark science or shark conservation, and you have a story you want to talk about, get a hold of Dave and I. Dave, if people want to get a hold of you, where would they go?
Go to Lost Shark Eye on Instagram or Facebook, Lost Sharks. And then the best ways, or if you can get a hold of me through the university, Pacific Shark Research Center at San Jose State University.
Yeah, for sure. And then if you want to get a hold of me, if you want to contact both of us, you can do that at Beyond Jaws Pod on Instagram. But
Yep.
if people want to get a hold of us to get more content out, and they want to talk about their research project, as long as it has to do with sharks or around that topic, feel free. We can't guarantee you'll be on, but we'd love to hear from you and see what you're up to. But thank you so much, Dave, and thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing that story with us. A great study, and we look forward to hearing from all of you next time. Thank you so much for joining us on the Beyond Jaws podcast. From Dave and I, have a great day. We'll talk to you next time, and happy conservation.